We were in the city, leading regular city lives, and it seemed very empty. The pace of city life is pretty hectic. There are a lot of distractions, a lot of things which can drag you away from any sort of thought. We spent half a year driving all over Japan and looking for somewhere we might like to stop. I think it took a cup of coffee and we decided this is where we were going to be. The idea of the land was to be able to be present, produce something beautiful, to be surrounded by beauty. There is richness in life, richness in nature, the colours, the smells, the sounds. Those are riches, aren't they? Of a far more meaningful sort than numbers in a bank book. So the first spring I was in a tent in this top field here. Autumn came about and an old lady who had a field down the road, she walked up here one day and said, "Hey, Igirisu-san, Mr. England, you do know there are bears up here, right?" And I said, "Actually, no, I didn't know there are bears up here." She said, "Yes, there are. You shouldn't be sleeping out in a tent." So I built a shed. This is it. So we were in here for about a year, cozy for a couple. This was all bamboo and rubbish up here with lots of trees that needed clearing, so I spent the first year basically clearing all this. I wanted a barn for my machinery and a place to make stuff, so I got a workshop at the end there. I wanted to do something with round wood rather than square dimensional timbers. All the materials are local apart from the roof. Immediately prior to coming out here was the Lehman shock, as they call it in Japan, the big collapse of the stock markets and everything. That was the trigger that made me decide, okay, got to get out of the city. I was working with CEOs and I've never seen people panic like that. And I thought, is your life so fragile? Yeah, are you so tied into this thing which is just a number to me? Is it so existential for you? And the answer was yes, it was. You're totally not here, really. This is the lower field up at the yurt on Guibi no Mori. As you can see, it's a circle. We did that because it looks nice. Originally, each of these sectors of the circle would be a different crop, and often each bed would be different things. Pretty much just growing 2 crops here this year, or this season. We've got ginger here, we've got sweet potatoes here. They'll rotate next year. We'll put them in where we have sweet potatoes now will be ginger, and where we have ginger will be sweet potatoes. Really, the food we produce is a consequence of what we do. It's not the goal, to be honest. So we try to give the fields a break, basically, give them a chance to heal. We do that by not leaving soil bare. There's always something on the soil, so whether that's a growing cover crop or whether that's just weeds, I'll cut down weeds and let the grasses or the cover crops lie on the surface, and I don't dig them in. A consequence of that is we can grow good food in it. It's maybe not, from a financial point of view, the most efficient way of creating money from land, but it does provide enough, and understanding the word enough is important, I think. When we first came to look at the land, one of the things that stood out, one of the things that was attractive, was this curtain of trees around the field. We thought that was rather nice from the point of view of privacy and also as a windbreak, because the winds hack up and down this valley quite rapidly at times. What I was looking to create was a place where we could just be ourselves, where we could be present and undistracted. How about the word sanctuary or haven? Being in the present, being aware of what you are, what's around you, what you are a part of, what's happening. For me, it's a much more human timescale. The pace with which things happen is much closer to my ideal pace of things. Things take a few days or a few months to develop from one to another. Thanks to being on the land, I've had time to think and create, come to conclusions. This is the yurt, which we built about 18 months after, or we completed about 18 months after buying the land. We spent probably a month building the deck, got that all levelled and right. A couple of months later, because I needed to get some friends together to help with the yurt, we had 5 people or 6 people here helping out. We put the yurt up in a single weekend. That was the exterior wall and the roof and everything. That would have been 2012. The yurt has a 9-metre diameter, and that works out about 52 square metres, I think. It meant we didn't accumulate too much stuff because it's not all that big, but it's big enough to not feel claustrophobic. The interior I had to build myself. Half the yurt is enclosed and half the yurt is open. The back of one half has the bathroom and the kitchen on the other side, so all the plumbing comes in one area. Then we've got a double bedroom, and because we decided and planned the yurt before our daughter was born, what was going to be the closet became the baby room. So she lived in the closet for the first 5 years of her life. There is no electricity or drainage or anything on this land, so everything is self-contained. I had to build a cistern up in the hills and take water from there and pass that through a filter. We built a filter box. We pumped the grey water up onto the fields. Got a solar pump under the yurt. Toilet is a composting toilet, so that goes up into the woods once or twice a year. And I did my maths, how many kilowatts do we need, and looking at old bills from prior apartments and things. Figured maybe 3 kilowatts would be enough, but yeah, it was enough. We spent some evenings by candlelight, which was nice. Just the whole atmosphere of a round environment and peaking at the top. There's a little window in the top of the roof so you can see the stars at night. It's a lovely place. For me, permaculture is basically about shifting society in a direction away from the destructive, competitive, greedy way that society seems to be heading. For me, permaculture is more about what it does to people's minds, being aware of your place in everything. We have here elderberries, various varieties. I wanted to increase the number of trees we have on the land. Carbon is a big part of that. Also, planting trees, we have the advantage of a single harvest period where we can get everything in. Trying to get more use out of the land in a productive way that actually looks after the soil as well. Elderflower and elderberries are something that I grew up with in England, and it's a flavour from my childhood. I think a large part of this whole endeavour is trying to recreate my childhood maybe. The idea of regenerative agriculture is, as the name suggests, to regenerate the soil and to regenerate the environment that was there before it got broken. There is an awful lot of land that needs regenerating, including the fields here. I like what trees produce, fruit and nuts, and I like what trees do to the soil. When you build a rice paddy, there's a nice sort of 20-30 centimetres of soil on top, but under that there's a hard pan, which trees break really well. The roots go down, they go through the hard pan, and they're bringing up minerals from below and allowing air and water down into the soil. I like what trees do aesthetically. A lovely tree is a lovely thing to look at. There are lots of fields abandoned in Japan, so if you want to grow rice, you just find a village and ask around, and somebody will say, oh, 2 fields over there, 10 over there, help yourself. Growing it organically gets some funny looks from the locals who mostly don't grow it organically, and they often mention the weeds, and I say, yeah, they're there too. That's because we don't spray anything, because it's organic, because it's grown without any fertilizers or pesticides or anything. We can sell it for more than regular farmers sell their rice. The dream that we had involved lots of sort of sitting around eating beautiful food in a very quiet, peaceful, romantic sort of way, which we haven't had time to do yet. There's always stuff to do. The reality is different to the dream, but it's a good reality nonetheless. It's nice to be surrounded by the sounds of nature and the smells and the colours and the aesthetics of being here is so much better for the soul than grey concrete in or somewhere like Osaka or wherever.
Crispin's story inspires me because it shows how satisfying it is to work in service of nature. I love that he and his wife Kazumi have found a way to make a living from permaculture. They nowadays focus on producing sweet potato, ginger, taro, rice, beans and elderberry elderflower, which they turn into different delicious products. Ginger syrup using a Korean recipe that's a health tonic, a traditional Japanese non-alcoholic drink made from their rice called amazake, and fizzy drinks and syrup using their elderberries and elderflowers. They process and package everything in-house and sell directly to customers across Japan. After 7 years living full-time in the yurt, Japanese hot summers became more intolerable, and their daughter Emma finally outgrew her tiny closet room. So a couple of years back, the family moved into an empty property not far from the land they have been working to regenerate over the past 14 years. If this film spoke to you, I promise you'd also love this one, about another off-grid permaculture homestead here in Japan. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and see you all in the next film.